Hello, everybody. Welcome to Perpetual Motion. I'm the host, Dr. Mo Anderson. I'm a best-selling author, award-winning podcast host, conference speaker, and communication coach. My goal for each episode is to help you stress less, produce more, and love the ones you're with. We focus on wellness, relationships, communication, and leadership. My guest for this episode is Jessica Spear, a thought leader, speaker, and author who helps others cultivate healthy relationships. She has a master's degree in social sciences and is regularly featured in media outlets on topics related to parenting, social emotional development, and friendship. Friendship, true friendship. Today, that's our topic.
You can't say Dr. Mo ain't tell ya that fear magnifies the consequences of failure. What are you scared of? Why are you afraid? I'd rather live like I'm dying than live to die. Any day, my heart is pure, my soul is safe.
Hi, Jessica. Welcome to Perpetual Motion.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
It's, ever since our introductory chat, I've been really looking forward to this. And I talked to a lot of people, but I have to tell you, I described you today. I was talking about this interview with a fellow podcaster, and I said, we had a conversation, and she is quite the nicest person, like Mr. Rogers nice.
Well, that is the best compliment I've ever gotten because I love Mr. Rogers. Love him.
I love Fred Rogers too, as an adult and as a young person. And I have never said that about anyone either. I mean, I think I'm going on 200 of these podcasts, and I've never described anyone like that. So I meant it sincerely, and I think it speaks to the wonderful work that you're doing with teens and preteens and adults around healthy relationships and friendships. It really comes across in talking to you. So kudos for that.
Thank you. That's so nice.
As a parent and grandparent, I love that your work emphasizes helping adolescents navigate their social worlds and build healthy relationship skills. Why is it important to focus on this age group?
You know, what's so important about this age group is kids are really starting to develop their identity and who they are and who they want to be. So starting in adolescence, which everybody begins that phase at their own, their own time frame. Mm-hmm. But once we enter adolescence, we really are starting to look at who are we and who do we want to be and who are our friends and what kind of friend are we? So I feel like it's the perfect time to really be introducing, the skills of healthy friendship and just the awareness of what does a healthy relationship look and feel like? Because for all of us, our friendships are so important to our well-being,
Yes.
They mean so much to our mental health, just our overall sense of self. So it plays a huge role in our lives, and especially in the teen years. So the teen years, kids are pulling away from the adults, their parents.
Yes.
And so they are looking for these deeper relationships with friends. So it's a perfect time to start diving into what are the skills that, really make a friendship healthy, and, what can we do to be a better friend?
Well, you're absolutely correct. All of that resonates with me, even though my background is in a different area. I've got a 13-year-old grandson now, and I'm seeing some of the challenges and, triumphs that he's going through with relationships. And then we're hearing so much in the news about friendships and relationships of young people with things that are happening in the school. So it's such an important topic. Why do you said they're looking at identity and who am I and what am I? Heck, I just asked myself that this morning, as a matter of fact, why am I here?
Yeah.
And that was over coffee. So these questions continue throughout our lives.
So true.
But can you explain why, in addition to their, becoming authentic, seeking to know themselves and their identity, why do the social struggles really intensify during adolescence? In addition to what they're going to internally, I'm guessing there's some things externally that are happening.
Yeah. So all of the above. And so as kids are, trying to figure out who they are outside their family unit, it can feel unstable at times because so are all their peers. And they're all also trying to figure out, there's a lot of skills that go into friendship. Let's face it, we learn how to compromise. We learn how to be trustworthy. We learn how to, communicate well. And it's a bumpy road to, even as adults, there's still skills that I feel like as an adult I can improve upon. So it's not surprising that when kids, enter this phase, there's a lot of changes, because they are trying to figure out who they are, and their interests change often. So if we look back at a person who's in sixth grade, what they're really into might be very different as to what they're into in high school. So a lot of our relationships, our close ones, are built on shared interests. And when our interests are changing so much because we are exploring ourselves and trying new things, it does have a ripple effect on our friendships. So, if you look at research, childhood friendships, especially in middle school, there's a lot of transitions there. And that can feel unsettling because this is a period of life where kids really want to put more weight in their friendships, but there's a lot of instability there, so sometimes kids aren't as confident. And when we're not that confident, we might not be putting our best self forward, if we're feeling a little bit insecure. So it's a really important time for learning all these, social emotional skills that go along with friendship, but it also is a time of huge change. And for some kids, it takes longer than others to figure out where they fit. Sometimes there's kids that, they find some friends in elementary and they sail all the way through. For other kids, that might not be such a smooth ride. They might bounce around a little bit until they, really find a cohort of kids that they feel like, oh, these are the kids that I really feel like I can be myself with. And we share a lot of things in common. So it can be a bumpy ride, but a really important phase that we learn so much from that we carry into our adult relationships too.
And it seems to me too that it's also a time that, the loyalties that we think we have get tested, whether it's among our friends or to our parents, and begin to question who we share what with in terms of secrets and feelings and all of that. Which really can have a big impact on decision making. So you're giving us a lot to think about here, because I think we tend to think of teens and right now millennials or the next generation. I can't remember what they're all called now, but the struggles that they're facing. But you're reminding us that a lot of this started much earlier. It didn't just occur after graduation.
Yep.
One of the topics in the news a lot right now is bullying, whether it's online or in person. I've seen people on subways, just a gang of kids jumping on other kids. Is horrifying. But I'm wondering, will you define the difference between conflict and bullying? Because I guess they're not synonymous.
Right. And this is such an important distinction to make, because we definitely don't want to ever overlook a bullying situation. But, schools and communities have done such a great job of raising awareness to bullying that sometimes something that is just a conflict, gets escalated to the point where it's named bullying, but it's really not. And when we do that a lot, we might miss something that is, a real bullying situation. Okay. So how I define these is, conflict is just strife between two people. It's inevitable. You put two humans in a room, and at some point there's probably going to be some sort of conflict, right? So conflict tends to be, there's a level playing field between those two people. Both parties have some involvement, even if one has maybe 2% and the other one's 98%, but both parties are involved in this conflict. The difference between bullying is bullying feels very one directional and very intentional and aggressive and repeated. So those things, again, it's aggressive, it's intentional, and it's repeated. And often there is a little power imbalance, or we talked about in the conflict, these tend to be, equal playing field. In a bullying situation, there might be a power imbalance. It might be a group against one. It might be somebody with a lot more social status against somebody with lesser social status. So in those situations, that needs to stop. That is really detrimental to that person who is the target of that bullying. And, something needs to happen there, whether it's adult intervention or someone is coaching that teen or preteen, how to, navigate that situation in a way that feels comfortable to them. So yeah, really, I'm glad you asked that, because that's super important for people to keep their eye out for that, because it happens, and it happens online now, unfortunately, too.
Right.
It's hard to monitor that, but if parents stay in check with their kids and make sure they know that if something happens online, that they have a place that they go to, whether it's an adult that they trust or it's a safe to tell line, but something needs to be done there, just because that is such a scary place for kids to be the target of that.
Okay, I was trying to jot those points down: aggressive, intentional, and what was the third one? Repeated, because, and when we spoke before, I told you I love this work that you're doing, and you know better than I, though, that this also applies to adults, because I know people we're not calling it bullying, we call it workplace harassment, but these same things are happening, on their jobs, whether it's a peer or a manager, aggressive, intentional, and repeated, and somebody in a position of authority, often, but not always. Sometimes they've elevated themselves to that position when they don't really have that authority. But for a meek person, it can feel like they have a lot of power. And so, again, learning these skills and the difference early on, because we tolerate a lot of things simply because we tend to sugarcoat stuff, and we've been taught to kind of just suck it up. And things like that going on in school or the workplace need to be addressed. I like those 3 points. I'll definitely use that again: aggressive, intentional, and repeated. Very good.
And you're right on the spot that unfortunately it does happen in workplaces, so that's important to be aware that this doesn't end, unfortunately, in childhood. It does happen in workplaces, and hopefully the workplaces have a place to report that. Now, that's more common in a larger organization, but smaller organizations might not have something in place there. So, the person who is dealing with that might need to look for some outside resources as to how to navigate that situation.
Sure, because there's an emotional, wellness impact, social impact, and professional too. You can't excel in an environment like that. There's no growth, regardless of your age. Yeah. So when we have kids experiencing friendship struggles, how do we as parents and grandparents best support kids? Because my parents, that generation, they just kind of stayed out of it. And you figure it out. You guys are just kids talking through it. And that's, sometimes you need a little help. So how do we help? And when do we know that it's normal? And because you have to build those skills as well. So we don't want a helicopter and come in and make everything okay so that they don't know how to navigate challenges. But how do we do that in a way that's healthy for the kids?
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up, because I think there's been a huge shift. So when we were growing up, parents were really hands off. They had no idea what was going on. And then there was a shift where there was almost too much involvement, too much maybe protection of the kids. They didn't have a chance to really build these skills and get confidence in themselves. So there's a middle ground there that parents can, really follow to help kids know that their home is a safe place for them to share. And what that often means for parents is we have to be really careful when we start to jump in with advice. So our role is, when they come in and they have a really, a tough day and a tough story to tell, we're there to listen, to show empathy, and sometimes what they really want to hear is, oh my gosh, that is so hard. How did that make you feel? So we are their emotional coach, so one of the best ways to start to tame emotions, especially uncomfortable ones, is to name them. So helping them, name what it is they're feeling. Is it really frustration? Is it anger? Is it shame? So helping them start to put some language around these tough emotions they're feeling, and then let them really share what happened, in their own words. When we are processing out loud, we're getting it out. We're sharing our story, and it's truly a gift to have that story heard, especially by a loving adult. So just being there to hear their story. There may, or probably not, it's probably not something for us to do, other than be there for them. But we can keep an ear out if it does seem like they're being isolated, or it possibly is a case of bullying, that we know, we can then step in. But in most cases, like 99% of the cases, it's just building this relationship with them that they know they can come to us. And then later, once maybe they've worked through the situation, the emotion, I think it's really important for parents just to keep talking about the skills associated with quality relationships and healthy friendships. And, we can do that not in a lecturing way, but we can say things like, noticing the positive. So say they have a friend that, made a mistake, but then really own that and apologize. We could say something like, wow, I think that's really brave. I love how they owned that mistake and they sincerely apologized. Or, I love how that friend really stuck up for you. Or I love how you, made a nice compromise with your friend. So just noticing the opportunities where we can really highlight some really positive friendship skills. So not always the negative ones, like let's shine a light on the good stuff that we see happening. And then they will try to make more of that good stuff happen in their lives.
Okay. Now this question came to mind as you were explaining that. And I'm a boomer, I'm a grandparent of 3. And sometimes you just kind of, being grandma, fearing people around, ear hustling a little bit. And you hear some things that are just slightly alarming. And it may be about the friends, or it may be about the parents, even, because there's a relationship there that's separate from the relationship that they have with me. And, or they'll even say, don't tell mom, but so-and-so, this happened recently. I won't say who, what, when, or where, but and it wasn't bad in that case, but I'm just wondering, as they get older and you hear things and you just, that generation removed, do you still say it's about school, do you still employ the same techniques that you're saying, or do I tell their parents what happened?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, that's a tough one. That puts you in a tough spot, because you don't want to break the trust with the child. So I would say it depends. It depends if you feel like it's getting into a situation that is really unsafe. But maybe if that happens, can you talk to the teen about, later on, say, hey, when you mentioned this about this friend, that was really concerning to me. So I just wanted to check in with you about that. How would you feel if I shared this with your mom? So I somehow navigating that situation without breaking their trust, because it's wonderful that they have, the comfort level with you to share those things.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like if it's really unsafe, like it's just keeping you up at night now, you're really worried about this, maybe check in with them and, talk to them about that and see, and then go from there, because it is wonderful that they are sharing that with you, and then sometimes if you break that trust with them, they might stop sharing. So I would navigate that really carefully, and just kind of go with your gut, and with if this feels like a situation that really does need more attention.
Okay, good. I like asking for permission. That's a good answer. Thank you for explaining that. Well, I like sharing across the board, but we know that your focus is on teens and preteens, but these things apply in so many ways universally, that having healthy friendships is a counterbalance to stress. And you mentioned emotionally and kind of spiritually, but I would even say physically, because for someone like myself who's had chronic illnesses, I really didn't know how great my friends were until I absolutely needed them. And whether it was a loss or dealing with cancer and recovering from surgery, the way friends come through. And I've had people who, to my surprise, there are a lot of people who don't have that many friends. And, they're just shocked when they see the outpouring of support. And it makes me kind of sad, but it also makes me very grateful that I was able to establish and nurture these friendships. So what if you don't get this when you're a teen or a preteen? Is this something you can learn later on, understanding friendship and nurturing healthy relationships?
Absolutely. I think it is a lifelong journey for all of us. So if, say there is a preteen or teen that's not in a situation where they get to really work on these skills, they can learn them anytime. We all are always learning these skills all the time, so there's a quiz in my book that, is how healthy are my friendship skills? And no matter what age you take that quiz, there's always something that is, maybe our weak spot, so at any age, we're always growing and learning. So yes, to answer your question, hopefully, we start to set some foundational skills when kids are preteens and teens, but plenty, make it through that stage and have a lot to learn still. And that's okay. We can learn that as a young adult. We can learn that as a middle-aged person. We can learn that as a senior.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you reference your book. You have a couple of great books to my knowledge and lots of blogs and other material. Now, I know BFF or NRF, which is Best Friends Forever, the title, or NRF, Not Really Friends, which sounds a bit like an online dating app, but
yes, it does.
Like, she may have something there, but luckily it's not. So since you alluded to your book and you've got this great work out there to help teens and parents and caregivers, tell us a little bit about your books and your writing.
Okay. And I'll tell you about this NRF so I was trying to think of a name for this book, and I'm not a huge fan of labels, but I thought I need something to, kind of categorize when we find ourselves in relationships that actually aren't really friendships. So, I was on a walk one day and I'm like, not really friends. Like, that's what it's going to be. It's just not really friends. So I'm going to read off my bulletin board what I have assigned as the qualities of not really friends. Because I think for all of us, we all end up in these situations sometimes. And it doesn't mean, we could still be kind, but we're going to be cautious in those relationships. We might put some boundaries in place. Okay. So the qualities of not really friends, nice to you some days, mean to you other days. They're untrustworthy. So maybe there's been some really big breaches of trust. Unaccepting. So they leave you feeling uncomfortable being yourself, and maybe even unsafe. So they ask you to do things that you're uncomfortable with. So that to me is a situation where, it's not really friends. So what I like to do is encourage, parents. I have a resource called the Friendship Pyramid. And so it kind of has the different levels of friendship. At the very tippy top are close friends. And we tend to have just a couple of those. So these are the relationships that are longer and, they're filled with trust and respect. And we can't have a ton of close friends because these relationships take time, to nurture. So we have a couple close friends usually. And then there's a huge friends bucket underneath the tip of the pyramid, friends. And in that, I just have, classmates, teammates, neighbors, the people that we are friendly with and we like, but they're not, our close friends, but they're friends. And then underneath that, our acquaintances, all these people out there that we know that could be friends or even close friends someday. And then separate, from the pyramid is the not really friends bucket, but everybody changes. So you never know. Since we're all learning and growing, you never know. These not really friends, another time in our life, it might have, we might have a different relationship with them. But this is kind of a fridge-worthy resource that, families find helpful because, as kids are navigating relationships or adults, sometimes it helps to have a visual that, I think maybe why this relationship isn't feeling very good is because right now it's not really friend situation. I could see that, they're nice and mean to me, or I feel really unaccepted in this relationship. So just being aware of that, is
Right.
helps us to really put some energy into healthier friendships.
And to that last point too, it just kind of made me think about just people who constantly need you to do something, but they're never there for you. They're not supported.
Yes.
They're unavailable when at those times when you need something, which I think is a big sign of not really friends. I used to say that if you didn't know my kids' names or didn't even know that I had kids, people are always like, and I'm like, yeah, we are Facebook friends. That's all we are. Because if you don't know, as much as I talk about my children, if you don't have that basic information, then we're really not at what I would call a confidant friendship level. Although I may feel, very great about you and likewise, but there are also some details that go into, like you said, that building that relationship that they'll know that you won't see with other people, even though they call themselves friends. So
right.
Not really friends. NRF, that's going to be my little acronym. little secret thing that I'll jot down in my Android. So I like that. Now, you mentioned the pyramid, which I was going to ask about. Thank you for sharing that. But there are also seasons of friendship that you discuss and have a concept on. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. And so, sometimes we feel like, when we do lose a friendship, it really hurts, even if it was the right thing to do, even if, that friendship, ending was the right thing, it hurts. And we start to get, second guess ourselves. And so, but, what the reality in friendships is, they do change over time. Most of us have seen lots of transitions in our friendships. We might have a few friends that we have carried all the way through, but we've also had lots of seasons in life and lots of changes. So, when we were middle schoolers, we might have had a set of friends, and then we went to high school, maybe we went to college and we had a different set of friends. And then maybe we had friends when our kids were little. And so there's all these seasons. And so I wanted to make sure that, that's what one of the friendship truths I call them. One of the friendship truths is, friendships have different phases and change over time. Look, it's totally normal. So let's normalize that. Let's not, yes, it hurts when we lose these friendships, but it happens all the time, and it's okay.
It does.
Just like life has seasons, sometimes our friendships do too. So, giving ourselves the grace when we need to move out of a friendship, but giving other people the grace if they need to move on too.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I'm a wellness coach. And one of the things I talk to clients about, because that is really hard, whether it's a family member or a friend losing them. But instead of just wondering why did they leave, for me, and what I recommend is that the emphasis be on why they were there, which leads you to the discovery of the season. When I started looking at, old friendships like that, it was like, okay, well, we, had children together. That was that season, and they kind of grew up and went away. But that was our connection, was that we were going to softball games and we were doing this and that. It was built around that. Our career, a lot of times people work at a place, and I caution against this a lot, because they think, just like in high school, you thought those people, they're going to be my friends forever. But no, they were for that season. And when they leave, there's white space for new things and new people to come in, and you can reconnect with them later. So what a beautiful thing, like the seasons of life or the seasons of nature, the seasons of friendship. You are so clever, NRF.
Well, thank you. I think it all came from me just being so confused by everything that was going on. So one of the things that, one of the wonderful benefits of, diving into this at a deep level and running a friendship program that grew into the book is I got to really dissect all this and get a lot of clarity. So it was so helpful to me to really figure this out as best as I can. Because, let's face it, relationships are complicated. Human beings, we're complicated, so
we are. We so are.
Yeah. So for me, it was almost therapeutic just to create a friendship pyramid. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is how it looks, or to create some of these friendship truths, because, these are really normal experiences, but we haven't put the words to normalize them out there, so that's what I guess I've been trying to do is just let's normalize this, and just our shared humanity as we navigate these lives.
And you're absolutely doing that. You mentioned your books, the BFF or NRF. Did you mention your second book?
No. So that book actually comes out August 2022. So it's coming out in 2 months. And
congratulations.
Okay. I know. I'm so excited about that one. So, middle school is a really interesting time for kids. And so that, of course, piques my curiosity. I really wanted to unpack middle school. So I spent time in 7th grade classrooms and was asked students, what is the trickiest thing about middle school? And I got, classroom after classroom, they gave me thoughts of what they felt like the trickiest things were about middle school. And so I came up with the top 10, the top 10 trickiest things about middle school, and really dove into those. So what I wanted to do is unpack those tricky things and put some human behavior science behind it. So for instance, one of the most common things that middle schoolers shared was tricky is gossip. So I wanted to explore gossip. There's reasons why we gossip. And sometimes when we know the reasons behind the behavior, it's super enlightening and might even influence whether we choose to do that or not, or how and when we decide to gossip. So this book, unpacks the 10 trickiest things that middle schoolers told me about middle school, but I also threw in there some choose your own adventures. So, there's a story about gossip with 3 different endings so that readers can figure out what that story, might look like if it had different endings, because when I was growing up, I loved choose your own ending stories, just loved it. So, so I just wanted to do that too. Just write some choose your own endings, but using these real, common scenarios that kids experience.
What a great idea. And they love interactive stuff. And they, will there be, is it a digital version where they can interact? How do they choose their own endings? I'm kind of curious about that. You just go to a different page in the book, depending on which. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a digital book, but it's print too, and so they would skip to the page, to read the ending. So very much based off the old-fashioned one. But in the book, there's also little quizzes because when I was a preteen and teen, I loved those too. I loved quizzes, especially quizzes that really tap into some awareness of myself. So, so there's all sorts of ways in my books for kids to just engage and think about themselves and as they navigate these social situations.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very happy for you. I'm sure it'll be as big of a success as your previous book and just elevate your branding and your engagement. Before we go, thank you for your time. And before we go, tell listeners how they can connect with you and avail themselves of your resources, social media, website, and I'll drop it in the show comments as well, Jessica.
Yeah, well, and thank you so much for having me. It was so fun to chat with you, and I love your work. So thank you for putting all of this out there. What a huge resource to individuals and families. So thank you. And the easiest place for people to find me is my website, which is Jessica Speer, SPEER.com. And on my website, I've got links out to all my socials. I've got information about my books. And I write a monthly e-newsletter. So if people are interested in these topics, they can sign up for my free newsletter. And one of the things that subscribers get when they sign up for my newsletter is the copy of that friendship pyramid. They'll get a PDF copy of the friendship pyramid if that's of interest. Yeah, so they can get that. So just my website is the quickest way to find me, and I'd love to connect.
Oh, fantastic. Website, good information and free, because you can't beat that. That's the trifecta right there. So. Well, and please be sure and let me know when your new book is out. We'll have to get you back and talk about that as well. But until then, take care. And for those of you who are listening, remember to review, renew, and re-you. I'm Dr. Mo Anderson. Thank you. And wasn't that a great program? Oh, love that episode. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Learn more about me on my website, drmoanderson.com. That's MOE. You can read book excerpts, watch videos, learn about my services that I offer, and book me for a speaking engagement. I'd love to talk with your group, and I'd love to work with you. So until the next time, review, renew, and re-you. Thank you.